It's been 3 years and 9 months since Daphne Caruana Galizia was assassinated, and we've spent the last 3 years hearing horrific information coming out in court, and almost every week we've been graced with a new scandal. You'd be forgiven for expecting some sort of government reaction. However, we live in Malta, where the writing on the wall is denied, and politicians think that if they talk about serenity long enough and about allowing the institutions to work, the population will be lulled into a sleepy haze and ignore the bombing of a woman outside her home and every other scandal in between. It's very nearly worked. The public inquiry concluded yesterday, and in a few weeks we'll know the results. It makes me mad that Daphne's family had to fight so hard for this. How despite saying how we are the best in Europe, the best in the world, our democracy is so weak that our government got away with skirting responsibility for this murder and for years. And it was only after years of protests and international lobbying that the government was strong-armed into holding this public inquiry. Whatever the outcome of the inquiry, we can't call ourselves a democracy or the best in the world if we cannot safeguard basic human rights. We are not the best at anything if we cannot protect the right to life of our citizens, if we cannot guarantee something as basic as protecting freedom of expression without being attacked or harassed in the streets, if we cannot guarantee freedom from inhuman and degrading treatment of the most vulnerable amongst us. I get a sense that Malta is slipping. Our standard of living is slipping. Life is more expensive, the country is becoming uglier, we are cutting down trees, tarmacking over every surface. People are angrier, they're less tolerant, and it's not just the heat. We have a serious problem. Malta's inability to take responsibility for its actions has thrown us under the international spotlight for all the wrong reasons. And instead of the government addressing the problem, it lobs the blame onto somebody else. According to our government, our country's reputation has gone to the dogs, not because MP Rosjan Kutayar continued to do business with Jorgen Fenech after he was outed as the owner of bribery vehicle 17 Black, and then went on to accept a €9,000 gift from him, and then thought nothing of defending him before the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe. No. It wasn't because Konrad Mitzi and Keith Schembri opened up secret accounts in Panama to receive kickbacks and remained minister and chief of staff respectively for years. No, it's not because the government facilitated the setting up of Pilatus Bank so that certain PEPs could set up accounts there. It's not because we gave away prime land for peanuts to the American University of Malta, which is a veritable ghost town. Our country's reputation has gone to the dogs, not because Daphne Caruana Galizia was assassinated in broad daylight by a car bomb meters from her home and nobody shouldered responsibility, or because our former police commissioner Lawrence Kutayar was leaking information to suspects involved in Daphne's murder, or because the deputy commissioner Silvio Valletta, who while overseeing the investigation into Daphne's murder with Fenech already a named suspect, went holidaying with him. Certainly not because the middleman in Daphne's assassination was given a fake job literally at Castile a few weeks after he was commissioned, or because pardoned Vince Muscat repeatedly gave evidence that he dropped the co-accused, the Giorgio brothers, off at Castile for meetings. No. It wasn't because protecting the Electrogas deal, for which we are losing money hand over fist, seems to have been the reason behind Daphne's assassination, and yet the contract remains firmly in place. And see, when the Public Accounts Committee investigates the report by the NAO saying that millions were stolen from the taxpayer in the Electrogas deal, we have people like MP Graham Bedingfield forgetting their responsibility to the country and rapidly defending the person brought before the committee for an explanation. Guys, our plummeting reputation has nothing to do with ex-Minister for Justice Owen Bonnici being found guilty of breaching protesters' fundamental human rights and then being made a Minister for Education and is now responsible for civil rights. Or because despite this 100-page Constitutional Court judgment, the chairman for Valletta Culture, Jason McAuliffe, keeps on insisting that our protests are criminal actions, and somehow he retains his position. And it's certainly not because the Libyan Coast Guard, who we made a deal with to limit the arrival of migrants in Malta, was caught on film literally shooting at a dinghy filled with migrants and repeatedly trying to run them over while in the Maltese search and rescue area. And not a whisper was said. No, not a rush. According to our government, our reputation has gone to the dogs because we dare to speak about it. I mean, does the government really think that people outside of Malta don't have internet and cannot follow what's happening in Malta? How do we expect to be taken seriously on an international scale when reports about a sitting minister and ex-minister having played an active role in a bank heist are received with the same interest from the government as if someone had reported that they've just eaten a pizza? No. Despite all the damning information that has come out in court over the last 4 years, instead of the government being embarrassed and taking action against those who are repeatedly mentioned, they turn the tables, they rally their trolls, and they accuse anyone who speaks up of being a traitor. Occupy Justice are traitors. Republica are traitors. The Caruana Galizia, traitors. David Casa and Roberta Metsola, huge traitors. But people who shout traitor remind me of those who try to cover up incest. It's the same reasoning. They ignore the fact that for years the victim has been raising flags internally. They ignore the fact that they have been covering up for the accused time and time again. And when the victim finally takes the abuse to a higher power in the hope that something will be done, they accuse the victim of bringing shame on the family. It's the victim who is the troublemaker, not the abusers who have ruined lives and have gotten away with it for years. The reasoning is sick, and it needs to stop. Traitors. If you love your country, you don't sit back and watch it burn. You don't look on as the misdeeds of people in power and the strategic inaction against them threatens to bring a previously thriving financial industry to its knees. You don't sit quietly when shocking numbers of people in custody take their own lives or die under unknown circumstances. You don't look away when houses collapse on their inhabitants due to unrestrained building. You don't keel over and you play dead because the persons involved are bigger and scarier than you. And you certainly don't shut up when a woman is murdered in cold blood to cover up a scandal. Our government's inaction has led us to become a country that is known for killing journalists, that has been grey-listed. It affects everyone. And we have to stop worrying about biting the hand that feeds us, because in fact, they've poisoned our food supply. And now we have to deal with it. We need to stop being so complacent. We need to get organized. We need the opposition to find its feet and start presenting itself as a serious and valid alternative government, because unrestrained, in 8 short years, it has truly been the best of times only for the criminal community in this country. The findings of the public inquiry will be out next week. I expect them to confirm what we've been saying for the last 4 years. If so, serious action needs to be taken against those mentioned. There will need to be a crackdown on those involved that is unrelenting until the rot is cut out once and for all. If not, it is going to be up to us to insist on it. The institutions need to work, and we need to hold them to it. We'll not let this be swept under the carpet with everything else. Thank you.